Wednesday, 19th June 2019. In our lead stories nationally, Vaughan Radio remembers its founder as it turns 31 and former St. Kitts and Nevis law officers sentenced for rape. Regionally, appointment of Guyana election body's chairman deemed unconstitutional. Internationally, Saudi Crown Prince should face investigation in Jamal Khashoggi's killing. And in sports, Kane Williamson's majestic 106 sees New Zealand beat South Africa as World Cup heats up. We will have the details to these and other stories after this short break.
Another look.
Different from how you've seen it before.
Another look.
Takes an in-depth look into business, politics, science, technology, religion, and more.
Another look.
Featuring documentaries from the BBC, regional features, and local ones too.
Another look.
Every Monday at 3 p.m. on the Eastern Caribbean's powerhouse, Vaughan.
Welcome back and on to our national news segment. As Vaughan Radio is celebrating its 31st anniversary of service to the people of Nevis, St. Kitts, the region, and the world, the station is remembering its founder, Mr. Merritt Herbert. Mr. Herbert passed away on Saturday, 23rd September 2017. His dream of operating a radio station on the island of Nevis came to fruition on June 18, 1988. Mr. Herbert, speaking at the opening ceremony of the station, told the gathering and listening crowd that the station will be the voice of Nevis.
The Voice of Nevis, commercially operated, is dedicated to the upliftment of the island of Nevis in particular and the Federation of St. Kitts Nevis as a whole. I trust it will be a true instrument in fostering harmony and good relations for all, not only in the Federation, but to other Caribbean islands. We welcome and encourage the Nevis St. Kitts public in particular, and the entire Caribbean and Virgin Islands, where the sound of this radio is heard, to view and value the station as their own, and patronize it, of course. In conclusion, I would like to add that everything will be done to enhance the island of Nevis, and in no time will its service be used to the disadvantage of anyone, but rather to the advantage of all.
Mr. Herbert, who resided in Tortola, paid frequent visits to Nevis, and upon his doing so, he would visit the station to meet and greet the management and the staff. In a message to commemorate the station's 29th anniversary, which was his final message, Mr. Herbert congratulated the management and staff for the exemplary work they were doing in upkeeping the integrity and standards of the institution.
At this time, I would like to give a special shout to all our listeners, near and far, and to thank them for their continuous contributions and support over these many years. This Sunday is our 29th anniversary of Vaughan Radio Station. I thank our listeners for keeping the service going. You have been the hallmark of our inspiration for all of these years, 29 years. We couldn't thank you enough, especially the people of St. Kitts and Nevis and everywhere else afar. I would also like to thank the staff of Vaughan Radio for all of their solid contributions over these many years, especially the manager, Everett Weber Hobart, who had to step in as the school teacher, and the rest, of course, is history.
That is a founder of Vaughan Radio, Mr. Merritt Herbert. And Royston Brown, a former member of the St. Kitts and Nevis Defense Force, SKNDF, and Montana Matthias, a former member of the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force, RSC-NPF, were on Tuesday, 18th June 2019, sentenced for the offense of rape. According to a release from the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force, Matthias was sentenced to 10 years imprisonment with time spent on remand applied, while Brown was sentenced to 8 years imprisonment with time spent on remand applied. The two men were convicted of rape on November 28, 2018, after being charged for the offense on December 13, 2016. According to the initial investigation, the men offered to give the victim a ride home after a party on the night of November 3, 2016, but instead took her to a beach where they raped her. And in more police news, officers of the St. Kitts Division of the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force are currently investigating an armed robbery incident which occurred in West Farm, St. Kitts on Tuesday, 18th June 2019 at approximately 11:20 p.m. Investigations so far have revealed on the said night, Jason Guman of Mattingly and Hannah Adamson of West Farm was driving along the Island Main Road from Ross University to West Farm in P1897, driven by Guman. While they got to the residence of Adamson, they were approached by an armed assailant who demanded money. The communique went on to note that upon exiting the vehicle, Guman was shot in his right instep by the assailant, while Adamson was grazed by a bullet to the back of her head, and the assailant fled the scene in Guman's vehicle. Both were transported to the JNF General Hospital, where Adamson was treated and discharged, while Guman remains warded in stable condition. The scene was processed by members of the crime scene unit, and items of evidential value were taken into police custody. Investigations into the matter is ongoing. And the MV Ifree Winds made its maiden voyage to the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis on Saturday, 15th June 2019. The vessel, which docked at Port Zante, was making its 31st maiden voyage to the Federation. In a ceremony to commemorate the event, Acting Prime Minister the Honorable Sean Richards stated that the Free Winds holds the distinction of being the longest continuous running passenger ocean vessel to grace the shores of St. Kitts and Nevis. He added that the significance of the Free Winds relationship with St. Kitts and Nevis extends beyond time itself, as it encompasses substantive engagements that support our country's national development policies and goals. Minister Richards also applauded Free Winds for the contribution it has made in the areas of drug abuse and prevention, human rights, building capacity in the maritime community, fire department, port authority, harbor personnel, police force, defense force, and Coast Guard, and cultural rights. In early 2019, Port Captain Kenneth Weber paid a visit to the island's National Drug Council on Drug Abuse Prevention, where he delivered copies of training manuals on drug prevention, treatment, and care. According to Minister Richards, the content from these manuals will be utilized by our University of the West Indies UWI Open Campus certified specialists throughout St. Kitts and Nevis, 28 of whom specialize in drug prevention education, while another 29 specialize in drug treatment and recovery. And a release from the Ministry of Human Resources in the Nevis and Administration is advising individuals wishing to further their education that the Organization of American States, OAS, and the Kimbora Group of Brazilian Universities, GCUB, with the support of the Pan-American Health Organization, PAHO, WHO, are launching the 9th consecutive edition of this program by offering scholarship opportunities to outstanding citizens of OAS member states to pursue studies in master's or doctoral programs at universities in Brazil. The scholarships being offered are for more than 200 master's and doctoral studies in various areas of knowledge. The release further noted that the degrees are available for up to 24 months for master's and 48 months for doctoral degrees. The benefits of the program includes a full tuition waiver, partial monthly stipend for living expenses, a one-time grant of US $1,200 to be disbursed to the first 150 ranked candidates once the student arrives at the university, and free Portuguese language support. The modality of learning is on-site in Brazil, and the language of instruction is Portuguese. However, proficiency in Portuguese is not required to apply. The deadline for applications is August 27, 2019. And finally, in our national news segment, Premier of Nevis, the Honorable Mark Brantley's monthly press conference is slated to take place on Tuesday, 25th June 2019. This will be the Premier's 6th press conference for 2019. The event will commence at 11 a.m. at the Cabinet Room on the second floor of the Social Security Building at Penny's Estate. At the press conference, Premier Brantley will provide an update on matters of national interest to the general public. Members of the press will be present and will have the opportunity to ask questions of general and community interest. The press conference will be carried live here on Vaughan Radio. That concludes our national news segment. You can visit our website at www.vaughanradio.com, or you can visit our social media page on Facebook at Vaughan Radio and also our YouTube channel at Vaughan Radio. News from across the region comes up next.
Ladies and gentlemen, this here's another one for the steppers.
Swipe to win big in 2019. That's right, the Bank of Nevis Limited is once again giving you, our valued customers, a chance to win big. Just swipe or use your Bond Visa credit card for US $100 for a chance to win a cruise for two, an iPhone XS, or a grocery dash at Best Buy Supermarket.
Say what?
Sign up for a Bond Visa credit card and automatically be entered for a chance to win. This offer ends August 31st, 2019. So tell your friends and family to swipe to win big with the Bank of Nevis. The Bank of Nevis Limited, improving the quality of life. Like us on Facebook or follow us on Instagram.
Welcome back and on to our regional news segment. In news out of Guyana, the Caribbean Court of Justice CCJ on Tuesday ruled that the process through which Justice retired James Patterson was appointed chairman of the Guyana Elections Commission, GECOM, by President David Granger almost 2 years ago was flawed and in breach of the Constitution. The court emphasized, however, that nothing in its judgment was intended in the slightest degree to cast aspirations on Justice Patterson's competence and suitability for the position of GECOM chairman, nor was there any suggestion that President Granger had not acted in good faith. The Constitution states that the chairman is not to be appointed by the President from a list of 6 persons not acceptable to the President submitted by the leader of the opposition. 3 lists with a total of 18 nominees for the post were submitted for consideration by opposition leader Barrett Jagdeo. President Granger rejected the names on all 3 lists. The first list was rejected as, in the President's view, the qualifications and experiences of the nominees did not seem to conform to the requirements outlined in the Constitution. The second list was rejected by the President as he found it to be unacceptable within the meaning of the Constitution and the criteria he had set out in a statement of qualities of the chairman of the GECOM submitted to the leader of the opposition. Prior to the submission of the third list, the government and the opposition met and consulted on the way forward on the selection of the appointment of the chairman. After that meeting, the third list was submitted to the President and rejected as being unacceptable. And in news out of Jamaica, the University of the West Indies UWI Cave campus in Barbados has entered into an agreement with the University of Ghana, UG, for students to study medicine in the Caribbean. Vice-Chancellor of UWI, Sir Hilary Beckles, made the announcement at a breakfast meeting held at UWI's regional headquarters, Mona, on Sunday to welcome members of the delegation from Ghana. He pointed out that in their training, the students will be able to study closely conditions such as hypertension and type 2 diabetes, with the major health challenges being faced by the Caribbean region. Underscoring the benefits to be received by UWI's medical program, the Vice-Chancellor said, and I quote, "Our children in the Caribbean will have an opportunity to train alongside African students, cross-fertilizing ideas and creating in themselves a notion of global Africa, end quote. The project is among a number of initiatives being explored between both universities. And in more news out of Jamaica, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade says it is investigating the matter in which four Jamaican fishermen have brought a case against the United States Coast Guard for alleged mistreatment following the arrest and detention in 2017 in Haitian waters. The American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU, and the law firm Storrock and Lavan LLP last week filed a lawsuit against the U.S. Coast Guard seeking damages on behalf of the fishermen Robert Dexter Weir, Patrick Wayne Ferguson, Luther Fian Patterson, and David Roderick Williams, who were secretly detained without due process at sea in inhumane conditions on the four Coast Guard ships for over a month. The lawyers said the men were held under the Coast Guard's unlawful detention and mistreatment policy that ramped up in 2012 as part of the United States war on drugs. Under the policy, the Coast Guard stops boats in international waters, searches them and their crew for drugs, destroys boats, and detains crew members for prolonged periods of time in inhumane conditions, regardless of whether any drugs are found aboard. Finally, in our regional news segment, in news out of Dominica, abuse of older persons continues to be a major concern in Dominica, and according to advocate Tina Alexander, there are cases of physical abuse in Dominica where older people are actually being assaulted. Alexander was speaking at an activity to raise awareness about elder abuse, which was held in Garaway Hotel recently. The activity was organized by FARCS, that's Premium Home and Residential Care Services, in collaboration with the Dominica Council for Aging, DCOA. Physical abuse is happening in Dominica. People are actually assaulting older people, she said. She stated also that most physical abuse happens from people who the older person trusts. Alexander revealed that she has been called to the hospital to counsel somebody who was raped. The lady was 90 years old, she added. She said not all abuse is physical. There is also financial abuse and sexual abuse of the elderly. And that concludes our regional news segment. International news comes up next as the VON Major News Package continues. Welcome back and onto our international news segment. There is credible evidence that Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and other high-level officials are individually liable for the killing of Jamal Khashoggi, a UN expert says. A report by Special Rapporteur Agnes Kalamad says the evidence merits further investigation by an independent and impartial international inquiry. Khashoggi was killed inside the Saudi consulate in Istanbul by Saudi agents. The BBC's James Robbins reports.
Mr. Khashoggi was brutally slain. She says she's determined that there is credible evidence warranting further investigation of high-level Saudi officials' individual liability, including the Crown Prince's. In the past, the Saudi authorities have insisted the murderers were not acting on Prince Mohammed's orders. But the investigator says the Crown Prince should be subject to the same sanctions already imposed by some UN member states against other named individuals allegedly involved in the killing, until and unless, she says, evidence has been produced that he bears no responsibility.
And for the first time since Malaysia Airlines flight MH17 was shut down in July 2014, prosecutors have announced charges against suspects in the case. 3 Russians and a Ukrainian have been charged with bringing a missile into the area in eastern Ukraine and with murdering 298 passengers and crew. Passenger flight MH17 was en route to Amsterdam from Kuala Lumpur when it was shut down over conflict-hit Ukraine. The BBC's Sarah Rainsford reports.
The Dutch-led investigation team believes these 4 men played a significant role in shooting down flight MH17. At the time, all four were key figures among the armed Russian-backed rebel groups who'd seized control of parts of eastern Ukraine. 3 are former members of Russia's military or intelligence services. The 4th is Ukrainian. They've all been identified through a combination of forensic evidence, wiretaps and witness statements, as the International Investigation Team says it sought to bring justice to the families of all 298 victims.
And police in Bangladesh have broken up a fight between hundreds of Chinese and Bangladeshi workers at a site of a partly built China-funded power plant. One Chinese worker was killed in the fighting in the southern district of Patakuheli, police has told the BBC. Violence erupted after a Bangladeshi worker fell to his death, and local workers reportedly accused the Chinese of trying to cover up the incident. Police said more than 1,000 officers were needed to restore calm. Chinese firms have invested heavily in Bangladesh in recent years, funding bridges, roads and power plants. Finally, in our international news segment, Hong Kong's richest man, Li Ka-shing, has pledged to pay the tuition fees for a class of Chinese university students through his charitable foundation. The Lai Shixing Foundation will fund Shantou University's 2019 incoming class for up to 5 years. Mr. Lee, aged 90, is worth $30.4 billion, according to Forbes. Last month, billionaire Robert F. Smith made a similar move, saying he would pay the loans of a U.S. college class. The Lai Ka-shing Foundation would cover full tuition of for 4 to 5 years for undergraduates, starting with the incoming class of 2019 at Shantou University in the Guangdong province in China. And that's it for international news. The latest in sports comes up next.
Betty, how come you never tell me what's going on up at TDC?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because TDC Automotive has some awesome deals. Get the car a new spare tire for just $100 plus VAT. And they have selected tires for 30% off. And for the Jeep, if you buy a selected Goodyear tire, you can get a second one for just $99.
Well.
And not finished yet. They're offering up to 30% off selected Valvoline oils and universal car mats, and a whopping 50% off Energix batteries.
TDC Automotive not making no joke. I going up there now.
Welcome back onto the latest sporting news. In cricket news, New Zealand captain Kane Williamson played one of the great World Cup innings to steer his side to a tense 4-wicket victory over South Africa. Needing 8 to win from the final over, Williamson swept the second ball for 6 to complete a majestic century. He then sliced the next away for 4 to see the Black Caps pass their target of 242 with 3 balls to spare. He was aided by Colin de Grandhomme's superb 60 off 47 balls after the Kiwis had slipped to 137 for 5. South Africa squandered chances to remove both during an absorbing finale, including failing to ask for a review before replays showed Williamson had nicked Imran Tahir behind to Quinton de Kock on 76. They summarized the scores are as follows. South Africa 241 for 6 in 49 overs. Van der Dussen 67 not out. Alma 55. New Zealand 245 for 6 in 48.3 overs. Williamson 106 not out. De Grandhomme 60. New Zealand won by 4 wickets. And in more cricketing news, India Open Shikhar Dhawan has been ruled out of the remainder of the World Cup with a fractured left thumb. Dhawan, 33, was struck by a delivery from Australia pace bowler Pat Cummins, but went on to score 117 from 109 balls in India's 36-run win on June 9th. He missed Sunday's match against Pakistan, with KL Rahul opening in his absence, and he will be in a cast until the middle of July. Wicketkeeper batsman Rashid Pant has been confirmed as Dhawan's replacement. Left-handed Dhawan has made 17 one-day centuries and averages 44.91 with the bat. India, who are unbeaten in the 2019 World Cup, next play Afghanistan on Saturday at Southampton. And in some football news, Brazil forward Marta wants to see her record-breaking status to push for more equality in women's empowerment. The 33-year-old scored her 17th World Cup goal in a 1-0 win over Italy on Tuesday to become the all-time leading scorer at men's or women's finals. Brazil's win puts them through to the knockout stages in France. Marta's second half penalty moved her ahead of Germany striker Miroslav Klose, who scored 16 goals. Meanwhile, Neymar's 3-match European ban has been upheld by UEFA, after UEFA rejected an appeal by his club Paris Saint-Germain. The PSG forward 27 was charged with insulting match officials after the Champions League exit at home at Manchester United on March 16. Neymar described as a disgrace the award of a decisive 49th-minute United penalty in their last 16-second leg match. He also wrote in an Instagram post that the penalty doesn't exist. Neymar will now miss half of next season's Champions League group stage. And in some basketball news, fresh off leading the Toronto Raptors to their first NBA title, Kawhi Leonard received the key to the city at Monday's championship parade. For now, however, the two-way star and two-time NBA Finals MVP still isn't saying whether he'll use it or keep a door open or close it behind him and move on. Leonard spent several days partying with his teammates in Las Vegas and Los Angeles after last Thursday's Game 6 clincher, returning to Toronto in time to ride in one of 5 open-top decker buses that carried the Raptors along a crowded parade route. That is a crowded parade route. That is a 3-time All-Star and 2-time NBA Defensive Player of the Year. Leonard is expected to decline the player option in the final year of his contract and become a free agent. Toronto can offer him a 5-year deal worth around $190 million 1 year and some $50 million more than any other team. Finally, in our sporting news segment, in some tennis news, former British #1 Andy Murray is set to take another step in his comeback from hip surgery by playing with Brazilian Marcelo Melo at Eastbourne next week. Murray will make his competitive return alongside Spain's Feliciano Lopez in doubles at Queen's this week. Their match has been pushed back to Thursday after rain washed out play in London on Tuesday. The 32-year-old Scot had a hip resurfacing operation in January. No player has ever resumed a singles career after a hip resurfacing operation, although American doubles player Bob Bryan returned 5 months after surgery in 2018. The Nature Valley International starts in Eastbourne on Monday. And that's the latest sports. The weather forecast comes up next. And your forecast for tonight reads partly cloudy with a 20% or slight chance of showers. Tomorrow, partly sunny with a 30% or low chance of showers. Winds are east to southeast at 10 to 15 knots or 19 to 28 kilometers per hour. Seas less than 1.8 meters or less than 6 feet. Your sunrise for tomorrow will be at 5:37 a.m. And that's how we wrap up the major news package for today, Wednesday, 19th June 2019. Before we go, let's take a look at the headlines once again. Nationally, Vaughan Radio remembers its founder as it turns 31, and former St. Kitts and Nevis law officers sentenced for rape. Regionally, appointment of Guyana election body's chairman deemed unconstitutional. Internationally, Saudi Crown Prince should face investigation in Jamal Khashoggi's killing. And in sports, Kane Williamson's majestic 106 sees New Zealand beat South Africa as the World Cup heats up. On behalf of the rest of the news team, I am Marvin Ross, wishing you a pleasant evening.